Do you know what to expect during an IRS appeal? I'm Andrew Bosserman, tax attorney and founder of Boss Tax Law, and in this video I'm going to discuss what to expect and how to prepare for a meeting with the IRS Independent Office of Appeals. So in the last video, I explained a general overview of the IRS Independent Office of Appeals and the three main ways you can petition your case to go to the IRS Office of Appeals. So as a quick refresher, like I said, there's three main ways. The first way is through an examination action. So this could be a decision from an IRS audit, or it could be something like the IRS denies penalty abatement. The second way is an IRS collection action. So this could be the IRS attempts to place a lien on your home or attempts to levy your bank account, or possibly you applied for an offer in compromise and the IRS denied it. Those types of collection actions are appealable. And the third way is through litigation. So if you happen to file a tax court petition but hadn't yet had an opportunity to have your case resolved with appeals, then oftentimes you will discuss and try to resolve your case with appeals before you actually go to tax court and commence litigation. So that's a quick overview, but the important thing to know is that when you have appeal rights under some sort of examination or collection action, you will receive a letter from the IRS in the mail letting you know. So it's very important to open all your mail from the IRS and read it, because oftentimes when you have appeal rights, you only have, say, 30 to 60 days to file an appeal to take your case to the Office of Appeals. And if you miss these deadlines, then generally you don't have access to the Office of Appeals anymore, and the only way to resolve your issue is to litigate the issue in court, which costs way more money and takes a lot more time than dealing with the IRS Office of Appeals. So once you receive a letter that gives you appeal rights, what should you do? So in certain instances, if the amount at issue is $25,000 or less for specific issues, generally examination issues, you can file what's known as a small case request. This is a very simple form. You put a little bit explanation of why you disagree with the IRS's findings, and then you mail it to the proper address, and that gets your case before the IRS Office of Appeals. But in all other instances, and even if you qualify for the small case request, you might want to prepare what's known as a formal appeal. And the formal appeal is a little more detailed than the small case request. You have to prepare a statement saying you disagree with the IRS's position, and you should also back it up with legal analysis, and supporting documentation. So it's almost, it's kind of like writing a brief for a court, but a little different. But you still want to thoroughly explain why you disagree with the IRS's position, why you think you're right, the applicable law, and why you're interpreting law correctly and how it applies to your situation. And in these instances, when I file formal appeals, I like to make them as detailed as possible generally. That way, if they want to, the IRS appeals office could rule for you without needing to have any sort of virtual or in-person meeting. And this has happened to me before. I had a client who was owed a pretty big refund that the IRS denied, but I prepared a thorough formal appeal request, and the IRS actually just went ahead and issued the refund without needing to talk with me at all or have any sort of hearing regarding it. So I recommend that, and it also makes all of your work easier in the future, even if you have to have an in-person meeting, because you won't be needing to provide a lot of additional information to the appeals officer. It will all be contained in your formal appeal. So once you timely file either a small case request or a formal appeal by the deadline, the Office of Appeals will assign it to an appeals officer, and generally gets assigned within a few months of them receiving your formal appeal. And once it gets assigned to a specific appeals officer, you'll receive a letter from that appeals officer letting them know that they have your case and that they, have scheduled a time for an appeals conference. And generally, that's within a month or two out from when you receive the letter. And you have the option to do that by telephone, sometimes virtually via like Zoom or another teleconferencing solution, or you can always go and meet in person. And these types of appeals conferences, it's informal. It's not like being in court, but you're meeting face to face, possibly, or over the phone with an appeals officer who's going to be deciding your case. And it's just another opportunity for you to explain why you think the IRS is wrong in your scenario, and also gives the appeals officer the opportunity to ask any additional questions. You can provide additional information. So it's important to treat it, formally. I've had recent success going in person with appeals officers. Not too many go in person anymore, but for certain scenarios where the case is worth a lot of money and you think it might be helpful to go in person, I definitely recommend that, because not too many people do that anymore. So once you have your hearing, then the appeals officer will, review everything and make a final determination on the issue. And this can take a number of months. For certain cases, if it's very complex, it can take, half a year, possibly even more. If it's more of a simple issue, it might take less, but there's really no standard time frame. And you will receive a letter from the appeals officer and the Office of Appeals, and it will say, how they are ruling on your case and what their determination is. And once you receive that, if you agree with it, then they'll take whatever action. You can always disagree with it, and you still have the opportunity to take your case to court generally. But I think the important thing to note and the takeaways from this video are that you definitely want to make sure you check your mail and that you file your appeal timely. Otherwise, your only other remedy is court. And also, prepare your formal case appeal as thoroughly as possible, because it'll make it easier for you in the long run, and it might be able to help appeals rule in your favor without even needing an in-person or telephone conference. But if you do have a conference with an appeals officer, if it makes sense, go in person, because I've always found it better to meet face-to-face when there's very high stakes issues or a lot of money at stake, rather than just trying to resolve it over the phone. So hope this was helpful. Feel free to reach out if you have a formal appeal you're considering or just have questions about IRS appeals. I enjoy interacting with the IRS Office of Appeals, so happy to help or answer any questions.